Hi Barbie. Hi Ken. Hi Alan. You're so beautiful. I know it. Once in every adult's life, they must choose to Barbenheimer or not. I chose the latter. I've only seen the Barbie movie so far, and as far as I'm concerned, it's part of a cultural reset. The movie may or may not go deeper than its Barbie pink exterior. Let's dig into the iceberg that is the Barbie movie and its critiques on society. Hoi! I'm slightly fruity, Barbie, and welcome to the Academy of Pink Washing. As one does, I dressed in my It's So Barbie outfit and saw the film in theater. But I must admit, going into the movie, I knew almost nothing about it. The only thing about the plot I knew was about Margot Robbie as Barbie and Ryan Gosling as Ken, and honestly, that's all the plot I needed to know. Today's little iceberg, we're starting at the top. Barbie, pink, capitalism, baby. People are buying pink outfits to go to the movie, and honestly, I'm here for it. It is so cute. It's so fun to see teenagers and moms and even some boys dressing up as Ken. Super excited to go and get a whole outfit and make going to the movie a whole event. Also, when I saw it in theater, I even saw a little teenager in her prom dress, and honestly that is more than I would ever do to sit 2 hours in a movie theater, but it was adorable. I'm here for it. A lot of companies have started doing collaborations with Barbie, including Fossil, Kitsch, Aldo, Kipling, Kendra Scott, Crocs, and NYX or NYX. And you know what? It's just capitalism, baby. You don't even need to see the movie in order to understand this level of the iceberg. Layer 2 is what I call vulgar feminism, which is a horribly crass oversimplification of the feminist movement. In particular, we're talking women good, and by extension, and especially by detractors of the movement, as men bad. This is a common and malicious interpretation of the feminist movement, which some people do buy into. Usually they're what we call isolationist feminists, or even sometimes lesbian feminists, which is older term, but it basically means that people who want to cut men out of their lives or think that that's a good solution, which often doesn't last very long, even though, especially as a tween or young teenager getting into politics, that does seem like a great idea. The other aspect of this vulgar feminism, because vulgar means common, but it has a very negative connotation, is that the feminism at its most basic level in this movie, which there are other levels, at a very basic, not necessarily even watch the movie level, some people could understand it as a very white feminism where there's not a lot of intersectionality. We see our main character is white and thin and pretty because Margot Robbie is all of those things. And it's not necessarily bad, it's just kind of basic. It doesn't treat things that should be in terms of what needs to happen in order to actually have progress. And so this type of vulgar feminism is very understandable to a wide audience. It's easily consumable as a product, so you don't really have to know feminist theory or have been in any type of gender studies class in order to understand a lot of the language and a lot of the meaning of this type of feminism. Layer 3, Patriarchy and Horses. So one of the quotes from the movie, it's not really a spoiler, it kind of is, so we're kind of getting into spoiler territory, but you should be fine. The real world is better at hiding patriarchy. Ken goes into this big office building and he asks what's happening, where are all the women, and why do Kens have so much power? And the guy says it's because we're good at hiding the patriarchy, but there's all these things that come to amplify the male ego, which are horses, flags, the Godfather movie and mansplaining it to the barbs. In general, just needing dumb or subservient women to placate their male ego, their patriarchal ego. Ironically, after watching the movie at one of the department stores in my area, when you look around to the different sections, the men's section has a couple of paintings of horses in it and does have an American flag in one of the corners, and I'm just like, it's real. Because I know a lot of horse girlies that get made fun of for being horse girlies, and yet men are just allowed to be horse boys just because cowboys are masculine. And one of the articles that I read about the movie specifically talks about the influence of John Wayne on American male masculinity and where it is today. And this is also the layer which a lot of men who watch it but don't really want to engage with any of the underlying stuff are stuck at, because they see any kind of slight pushback to their power and hegemony, which I know some people say hegemony. It's sad because, hey, there's so much more you can look at, but because you think, oh, Ken is depicted as dumb and stupid and an accessory to Barbie, then that means men in society are just supposed to be a male accessory to women, and that's not the point. The point is that Ken represents women in a role reversal type of thing. We're going to talk about corporate power as part of patriarchy and horses, but I kind of separated it in my notes. Ooh. So, to begin, Mattel tells a powerful lie at the beginning of the movie.
But the dolls were always and forever baby dolls. Until...
It says, since time immemorial, little girls played with baby dolls. And that makes it seem that Barbie is better than it actually is. It helps set the stage for the Barbie movie being an ad for Mattel as a leader of progress, but what they are is feminism through consumption. Baby dolls are actually a consequence of the Industrial Revolution. In much of the world, there have been dolls since time immemorial, and they're often actually religious figures and or protective little things, and fashion dolls after that as adults. But then once we get to the Industrial Revolution, we get more prioritization of girls becoming mothers who are involved in the child rearing and all of that. Japan had a similar thing in the 1800s where motherhood's meaning changed to much more of an involved one-to-one mother teaching baby and only mother teaching baby. So you get little girls playing with baby dolls. And then Barbie in the 1950s, so about 100 years later, more or less fixed the problem by turning dolls back into fashion dolls and places to imagine the future as kids used to do. Beyond that, the movie explicitly shows us a boardroom full of men, with the CEO being an immature old man played by Will Ferrell, which he does a lovely job. He's funny. I enjoy his slapstick comedy. But at the same time, it's representative of CEOs being childish adult men who are often far too old to be in charge of anything. That's a bit ageist, so oops. Barbie has a crisis when she goes into the Mattel CEO boardroom and she sees only men, and they want to put her in a box. Oh my gosh, women being forced into a box of idealism, by men, a bunch of men, including old men, And the reality of only one woman really being in anywhere near the powerful positions of Mattel, but as the secretary, and also, Ruth Handler, the creator of Barbie, being hidden away somewhere in the building, so I guess that doesn't really count either. In this corporate setting and in real life, Barbie is sold to empower women, and yet there have been mixed results. Some people hate Barbie because of what she represents or what they think she represents, and some people love Barbie and think that she's a way to cast your ideals and your job future aspirations Barbie is only all of these things because of what she owns. Once again, we're back to this consumption of identity and of feminism, ideals, all of this stuff. However, the control of the executives over the Barbie franchise and its reception is not all powerful, as we see. The Barbies can escape from Barbieland, and things like the Mojo Dojo Casa House, which doesn't really seem like execs have control of it, then become a big hit while all of the execs are goofing around. So there's this balance between the consumer, the ideal, and the creator of the product, Mattel. At this point, we've already gotten into some spoilers, but not really anything too deep. But after this point, we're gonna get into a little more deeper spoilers. However, I'm still gonna keep some things vague, so it's still worth watching the movie or watching the movie again. Buckle in, kiddos, we're getting serious. What was I made for? Sad Billie Eilish song that's strung throughout the movie. What does it mean to be a woman? What does it mean to be an ideal? How do these things interact with each other? How do we contend with them? If Barbie is scrutinized for everything, is there any hope for a real woman? No. What is Barbie's purpose? If not to empower young girls? Sasha doesn't think so. She's the tween in the movie, the daughter of the secretary, calls Barbie such horrible things, including fascist, which is very much a tween thing to do from a child with the name of a Bratz doll. Barbie's purpose, is it to help people buy things and be satiated with a pitiable excuse for feminism in the form of consumption? Perhaps. In terms of the plot, Megan Garber, in her article in The Atlantic called Barbie is Everything, Ken is Everything Else, points out that Barbie and Ken are supposed to be teenagers. Some have said that they're supposed to be 19-year-olds, some more like young adults. This leads into the through line of the plot, where it's a coming-of-age story. The movie goes from a land of idealism to the imperfect land of the real world. This is also reflected by who is playing with the doll, and what you need to learn from the plot and all that stuff to navigate as a woman in the real world with all of its faults, and in order to protect yourself and be accepted and loved and whatnot by society. And also, if you go to the very end of the movie, the final joke, the final beat that it lands on, is just one more way to emphasize that this is a story of how a girl comes of age and becomes an adult. What was I made for? To be bought, to grow up, to die. So, we also have Alan, Kenough, and fourth wave girlies. So Alan, I want to point out, is there's only one Alan, and he's Ken's buddy, wink, but also their dolls. When I watched the movie, I thought of Alan as women's somewhat self-serving but helpful and valuable ally, and I say self-serving because he's like, I want to get out of here, take me with you. He just wanted to escape when he had the chance to do something, which encouraged America Ferrera and her daughter to leave, but then they'd go back for Barbie and try and fix things, but somewhat self-serving, but also very valuable and a good perspective to have that is very grounding, because Alan, throughout the movie, is not a Ken. He's not bound by the same rules that Ken's are. Alan's job is not beach, but Alan is also not a Barbie, so he also doesn't have the same privileges that the Barbies have in the world, but he's still vibing and he's having a good time. We let him down in the movie. He doesn't actually go into the real world. He's basically stuck. Some other essayists have argued that Alan is what Ken should strive to be. Chill with the barbs, chill with everyone, never harming any side, just being okay with being one of a kind. Now, I'm going to talk about Kenough at the end of this little section, but let's talk about fourth wave feminism. So fourth wave feminism is a loosey-goosey category, mostly because it's not a very cohesive movement. there's a lot of different factions and lineages of feminism, so it makes it very messy. However, I'm using it in this context to mean that, like the real world, the fourth wave feminist movement has then progressed a lot, especially by Latina women who have fought for various rights in South America and have helped to energize other movements around the world, including one of the current symbols of feminism and of some of the rights that we're fighting for with the green bandana. The Latina characters from the real world, so America Ferrera and her daughter Sasha, who go to the Barbieland to help fix it, to help progress it. They help fix the third wave feminism that is white feminism into one that includes more perspectives and can go from saying they're intersectional or being visually intersectional to actually being intersectional and actually having strong leadership from non-stereotypical Barbie. Before that, all of the diversity in Barbieland tends to be visual. For example, there's not a lot of meaningful leadership from the Black president Barbie. I'm calling her out in particular just because as president you would think she'd be more part of the solution, but she's not even the first Barbie that they transform back. They break the patriarchy within their brain, which also says women do fall under patriarchal norms and they uphold it and that they have to be broken out of that. All of the diversity in Barbieland at the beginning of the movie is mostly to be an accessory to white stereotypical Barbie. The Kens are peripheral to the movement. That also includes Alan. So that's why I still categorize Barbieland as third wave, but then the Latina influence from the real world, turning it from third wave to becoming fourth wave. Speaking of peripheral men, let's talk about Ryan Gosling's arc in the movie. So I thought it was more interesting than the Barbie, because I'm kind of used to these Barbie conversations and those kinds of feminist conversations. So his discovery of patriarchy and the rudimentary implementation of it in Barbieland was funny, but also disgusting and hits a little too close to home with the US and changes the Constitution. Currently, men are needing to redefine masculinity in ways that are less destructive because women are tired of a culture that excuses men's bad behavior and rarely punishes it, and even encourages it to some degree. This is in part why some people are calling Ken an incel, which honestly I think is so funny because Ken is a doll. Ken is asexual because dolls do not have sexuality as far as I'm concerned, and there's nothing really sexual in what Ken wanted. Like when he's like, can I stay at your place? It's like, to do what? I don't know. And then we discover that Ken is homeless, that none of the Kens have a home, all they have is a beach. So no hanky-panky's going on, my dudes. But I do understand where these arguments are coming from. Ken has the expectation that Barbie and Ken means Barbie and Ken are dating, that are supposed to be together, and with everything associated with that. However, this isn't what Barbie wants. And Ken gets frustrated and adopts patriarchal structures to put the Barbies in servile positions, so in order to make them pair up in some ways, and to punish stereotypical Barbie by making her homeless and possessionless. Remember, Barbie is what she owns. Without her things, she is nothing. The story arc ends with Ken is Kenough. He's Ken enough. He is valuable and necessary in all his goofiness, and this is the same for all Kens and men. I know it. Intergenerational, our next level. There's this scene in which Barbie meets an old lady on the park bench, and she says, "You're so beautiful." And the old lady says, "I know it." This is something that the movie establishes early on as a Barbie thing to do, meaning the old lady is a Barbie. She's the one who escaped before. It's a Barbie thing. I also love this moment because experts in beauty and anthropology, aging, and social gerontology often talk about how old women are often isolated and invisible in society once they're no longer young and beautiful. That's why aging is such a crime for women. When it comes to beauty standards and power, they just don't have any, except for in the context of their families. Or if they are the matriarch, then that's really the only time when they have power in social society. It is also why I personally make sure that whenever I see an old lady that I'm like, oh, look at her go, she's so beautiful, her fashion is great, I make sure I compliment them because I want them to know, hey, you are seen and you are beautiful, okay? Also, allegedly, movie executives wanted Greta Gerwig to cut that scene out of the movie. Those ignorant bastards. This scene is in line with the whole coming of age story. As an older Barbie, she really represents the heart of the movie. It's possible to grow up, to become old, and to maintain your ideals, your Barbie-ness, your beauty, even into old age, because she did look pretty old. And honestly, this is kind of like a weird thing, but I also feel like her face didn't look quite right, so methinks they might have used AI in order to age the actress even more. And maybe I'm wrong in ageist, but it also, like, her face just felt a little weird, like they used CGI, or as I said, AI to make her face older. This moment of intergenerational solidarity is repeated when Ruth Handler, the inventor of Barbie, the creator of Barbie, says this: "We mothers stand still so our daughters can look back to see how far they have come." To me, that's such a beautiful quote, but it's also sad because it kind of separates the generations almost unnecessarily, but also I see why it's good to have that kind of thing. But for me, I see the mother as the movie. The movie is mother. Barbie's mother. Okay, so the movie is a stamp in time of this is where we were, and it has hints to where we are going. And we need to progress beyond what the movie shows us, which is why I have, bam, fifth wave feminism. This movie is a touchstone for a point in time and where the feminist movement was with all of its faults and gaps. It's still imperfect, but it's getting better. I also hope that this fifth wave of feminism brings in Ken with all their beautiful kennergy into the mix, and our Allens are more important, and all of the perspectives and the diversity of the Barbies are, and Kens and Midge too, are important and crucial to how everything works, not just your stereotypical Barbie. There is room for the future, and there are voices like Michael Kimmel, Bell Hooks, and internet commentary people like Noah Samson, FD Signifier, Foreign Man in a Foreign Land, Turb, Saji Sharma, Ryan Beard, etc., etc., etc. There are so many people who are saying, TERFs, get out of here, we do not need you. Trans women, trans men, trans people, non-binary people, everybody is welcome into our movement. They are valid in all of their identity, and men are important parts of the conversation that we need to have with us as allies, as people who are feminists, to help improve society and march towards progress. And by bringing more of these masculine, non-binary voices to the movement, we have better discussions on femininity, but we also have better discussions on masculinity. It has, in the past, masculinity and what it means to be a man has been largely unexamined. We can better understand and engage with gender dynamics and talking to each other as humans to humans. Deep or delusional, it's all one and the same. I would say definitely the last point is me being delusional. At the end of the day, thank you so much for watching, and be sure to check out my video on waifus if you're curious about the blurring of the ideal in the real world, or my critique on North Korean de facto turn conservative mouthpiece Yummy Park. Bye bye! Also, fun fact, this is my never experienced any trauma. The only trauma I had was not being able to buy my pink bag. Well, I got it, bitch. I got it.